Just what is the point of all of those different coffee drinks? Lately, as I've been trying to figure out how to tell my story, I've been thinking a lot about how we perceive our coffee. This can be a ridiculously deep subject, and I don't want to jabber on for like 20 minutes. I could go down so many tangents. And by the way, if you're curious about my story and why I'm doing what I'm doing and all that sort of thing, making the coffee magazine, making these videos, etc., and if you're interested in coffee in any way, I'm putting this story together as part of my series that follows the coffee type quiz. So if you go to coffeeloversmag.com/type, there's a fun little quiz you can take. You can discover kind of how you fit into the world of coffee. I'm just calling it your coffee type. It's kind of like a personality type sort of quiz. And it's based around how we interact and think and behave with coffee. It's pretty insightful if I do say so myself. I spent a lot of time putting that together, and it's based off of my own observations of how other people interact in society and culture with coffee. But for those who take the quiz, and when you take the quiz, you'll get your results in the first email, and then what you want to do is at the bottom of that email, you'll see that I ask if you want to learn more. Make sure you tap or click on that link. And then this actually isn't going out right yet. I'm still working on it. But pretty soon, you tap on that link, and then I'll be able to kind of share my story with you and give you some insights and some really cool things. So it was a little sidebar, but I've been thinking about my own story and how I've perceived coffee through my experiences, and my sort of perception of coffee drinks has certainly changed around quite a bit. I realized something. I was actually going to talk about this last week. I think you remember on the last week's show I said that I had a last minute change because it took me forever to get the recording done in the day. But I realized this a little over a week ago. I'm going to talk specifically about Americanos. This kind of goes for a whole bunch of drinks. But you know, you go into a coffee shop and you can get an espresso, a macchiato, a cappuccino, a latte, an Americano, a blah, 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 blah. And I think without having enjoyed a lot of variations of those, it's hard to see why they each exist. And I think that the Americano is a very interesting sort of drink because my first impression of it, and I think it's most people's impression of it, and I think it kind of follows the story of how it came to be, is that it's sort of designed to be like a brewed coffee, which is made with espresso, or it's like a weakened watered down espresso, which is a pretty negative way to describe it. I started wondering, what is the point of this Americano? I went into a cafe, and I'm kind of on an Americano kick, which is I guess why I'm talking about this. I guess I just don't want to drink as much milk right now. But I went in the cafe, I ordered an Americano, and they asked, do you want 8 ounce, 12 ounce, or 16 ounce? And I immediately started thinking about my interest in cappuccinos and smaller milk and coffee-based drinks. See, that usually when I have a milk-based coffee drink, the most I go with is a cappuccino, which is technically a 6 ounce drink made with either 2 ounce shot of espresso or an ounce ristretto, or there's a myriad of ways to do it. But essentially it's a shot of espresso with enough milk that has a good amount of microfoam. There's so many ways to do it. I'm getting a little off track. My point is that when you combine the milk with that amount of espresso in a certain way, it brings certain characteristics out in the coffee that you don't get without that milk. And it's also nice to go smaller. You can get a Gibraltar, which, if memory serves, is 5 ounces. I should have written this down, but I'm kind of rambling a little bit. So my point is that you have Gibraltars and Cortados and all these other smaller milk drinks, which just use less milk in proportion to the espresso, and that combination has interesting interplay. Now, back to the Americanos, because Americano is just hot water with espresso, and I think that I'm just going to get to the point of it. I think anything over 8 ounces of an Americano is stealing something. It's kind of like drowning out your espresso with too much milk. And I'm not going to call it a weakened, watered down espresso. I'm just going to say that I've had the pleasure of having a lot of 4 and 6 ounce Americanos. And there's something about adding a little bit of water that just pulls a very interesting taste experience out of espresso that you wouldn't get without doing that. Maybe it's similar to if you ever drink scotch, and sometimes you might add a drop or so of water and it kind of opens up the drink. We're talking about a lot more than just a drop into the espresso, but I've had really amazing 4 and 6 ounce Americanos lately that pull a lot of the brighter notes out of the espresso, but in a way that's not, it kind of like softens the edges but makes a lot of the brighter parts clearer. So if an espresso has a lot of bright citrus and you add that you add that water to it to make the Americano, you might see that you might see a little bit more fruit. It might be fruitier, it might be a little juicier, it might be a little sweeter. I've had a lot of different experiences with it, but it does something really interesting, and you still get a really delicious drink. It's just a little bit different than just having an espresso, and it's way different than having like an 8, 12, or 10, or 16, or whatever ounce Americano. Because as soon as I start getting over into those larger Americanos, it just falls apart. I'm just disappointed by those now. I mean, if I want a brew, I'll order a brew, because any place that's doing a good Americano that I'll be interested in is also going to do a good brew that I'll be interested in. So my sort of personal delve into thinking about Americanos just got me thinking about how we perceive all of these drinks in general. Because to me, they all serve a certain purpose. They should serve the purpose to create a very specific experience with that coffee that you can't get any other way. And I think for many people, a lot of those drinks comes down to making the coffee more drinkable. And I think that's maybe an unfortunate perspective. I understand it, because a lot of times there's a lot of coffee out there that does need a lot of help to become drinkable. But when you do get coffee that you find that you can enjoy with nothing in it, or with a little bit, or a little bit of milk, or maybe foam, or maybe a little more milk, or maybe a little bit of water, and you start exploring how it's different with all these different elements added, then it can be, I really get into the exploration of coffee through those methods. Gosh, that sounded really nerdy. I'm good with that. Most of the time at home, I just brew. And I don't put anything in it, because that's the way I like it. And I think that the coffee that I prepare at home doesn't need anything added to it. As I said last week, I'm privileged to have access to wonderfully fantastic coffees that don't need to have anything added to them, to be sweet and interesting, not bitter at all. So that's coffee. That was kind of on my mind. As far as the week goes, last week, super busy, and after bragging about being really on top of the videos, I missed the video tips on Friday. I think what I need to do is I need to figure out maybe a slightly better recording schedule wherein I can just back-to-back record several videos throughout the week, for the week. Maybe even a day where I'm just recording and not editing. That certainly helps with my writing. Usually when I'm writing, I'll write a bunch and I won't edit. I certainly won't edit at the same time that I'm writing. It's a lot like free writing, where I just put words on the page. but I'll often try to split them from day to day. So one day I'll be writing, and then I'll be editing on the next day. And it makes the whole process so much more efficient because it's a different way of thinking about it. And right now, because as I'm getting into making this show, a lot of these, like today, I'm recording this right now, and as soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to go edit it and upload it. And perhaps what I should be doing is recording more in advance, and then having another day where I can edit the shows, and then they'll just be ready to be uploaded on the day and time that I like to upload them. So that's something I'm going to have to look at. I do have 2 tip videos that I'm going to record this week. I may not put both of them up, but I'm going to record both of them. Since I did the video before on the bloom, easy enough for me to follow up and do my sort of modified bloom that I use with the Chemex, which involves less water during that process. It's less of a bloom and more of a preparing, like pre-soak, I guess. I don't know if there is a term. You'll see it. The other video, tip video that I'm looking at, I have a few options that I've lined out. Since I haven't done my video on the Kalita yet, I may do a bunch of videos, like 3 or 4 back-to-back on the Kalita wave, comparing the Kalita and the Chemex, maybe some pour methods, like maybe a quick tip vid might be some of the pour methods that I use with the Kalita. There's so many options that can be done with brewing, and that's certainly part of the fun. I think it can be also overwhelming, so I want to try to break that down. But there's going to be some big news. CoffeeCon, we're about to launch the website. Finally for that, I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. You can go to coffee-con.com. That's the main website. If you're interested in the Seattle show, coffee-con.com/Seattle. That'll take you to the page for the Seattle show, which you can also get from the homepage. It may not be up by the time that you're watching this, because I'm recording this Monday, and I'm going to put this up Monday, and we're looking, I think, to finally make the website live Monday evening, but we'll see. There is, if you visit that site now, you'll see kind of a temporary page for CoffeeCon where you can sign up to be notified when the new page goes live. And go ahead and do that if that's what you see. Otherwise, have a look at the CoffeeCon site and all the shows that are going to happen next year. It's going to be really great. I highly encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. I will be running that myself, and I've got a lot of great and fun stuff to share for all those interested in CoffeeCon in Seattle and LA and New York and Chicago next year. It's going to be really super. So that's kind of what's been taking up some of my time, and it's a wonderful project to work on. Really excited. And in other quick news, got a new issue coming out really soon. Of course, we just published the Coffee Lovers Radio episode of this week, in which we talk about CoffeeCon. In the magazine, I published a little special issue, which is a photo tour of a bike cafe in Östrand, Sweden. I probably mispronounced that terribly. That came to me from reader Jesper Andersson, who is a mountain bike enthusiast and a photographer. So he caught that for me, and we put that together in a little special issue. And I got some more stuff coming up. There's a new issue that's going to be coming out very soon. One of the main features in that is going to be about the East African coffee ceremony, probably more commonly known as the Ethiopian coffee ceremony, but I got a lot to say on that. Really excited by that article. It's a really cool experience. And I got a lot to show you. It's coming up really soon. So thank you for watching. That's my spiel for the week. And I hope you have a wonderful week.